Hey everybody, you got Wayne Dorban and Kate Armstrong, our very special guest that's here with us today. Kate, say hi to everybody.
Hi there. Good to see you. Glad you're here.
All right, very cool. And we've got Mark B from Bangladesh helping. We might have Arib coming on here a little bit to help. And we've got all of you. And again, please, let's make this a fun hour or so. You guys interact with Kate. Put your questions up on the question area at the end. If any of you want to come on the line and say hi or ask a question live, we can do that. Kate's got a great presentation for us here. Not quite the way we'd hoped, because she was going to actually take the screen and draw some circles around things and point some things out to you. I think she's going to show you some things on the plant. So we're going to have to wing that a little bit where she describes it, and I'll probably do it for her. And her webcam's not working, so you're seeing me, and all you're seeing is her name there. She would be much better to look at than me, but that's where we're at. So this is a huge day for us, everybody. We have 4 webinars today, 4 live sessions. This is our first. There are 3 more later today, and if you don't know about those, send me an email. Mark put my email address up there. Most of you are members of our community, the Economic Action Team already. You have a calendar on your website that you can get the links to all these presentations at. So you might want to look at that and be able to find the links if they're not there. You can also find them in your table of contents because Mark puts them up there also. So lots of ways in which you can connect, and we're excited to have you here, and we're going to just get going. So Kate, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're at in the world, and why this whole area of foraging is something that's of interest to you.
Well, Wayne, I'm now in the urban area in Denver, Colorado. Normally, I would be found outside because I love to find all these spring wild edibles that are right in my backyard and along the sidewalks, in the alleys, in the parks. Of course, I have to be a little careful about who is spraying what. However, we can start this by letting you know that I grew up on a small, diverse farm in the 50s when we still grew and produced about 90% of what we ate. And I had a mom and a grandmother and a grandfather who grew up in the Smoky Mountains, so every time we went out walking, it was a lesson in here, pick this, pick that, taste this. Since I have all that information and I'm now in the city, I would like to pass that on to people, because as long as there's anything growing out there, we really do have food.
Well, that is so awesome. Kate and I met, gosh, I'm losing track of time, but I think it could be 7 or 8 years ago. Met her at a conference. I actually asked her if she would come out to our ranch sometime and do a walk with us and show us some of our edible food. And we found a time when she could do that when we were having an event that we call to Celebrate Sustainability that's in the fall every year. And Kate, by the way, we'll have our 7th annual coming up this year in the fall. And I think you were maybe at the 2nd one that we did. And so she did that. She was just the hit of the day. People were able, and it was in the fall, and it was probably not the best time actually, because all the flowering had already occurred. And a little bit later here in Colorado, probably in a month, would be just an amazing time, because there's so many of our plants that have flowered, and you can probably, she can show you all kinds of things. But that's how we met, and she is really, really good at what she's going to talk about. So we'll spend a few minutes just letting you get to know her a little bit, and then she's got a presentation for us here. So I'm going to ask you probably 6 or 7 questions, Kate. They're going to kind of be fun, and one of them may be a little more tough, but most people that have done this would really enjoy it. So let's start out with this one. Tell us about a person that's in your life that had a big influence on you related to this whole foraging circumstance. And it may have been, you already mentioned it with your grandfather or whatever, but just tell us about that person and what it is that they did to influence you in this area.
Well, my grandfather is the one I would talk about. He actually started the botany department in Furman University a long time ago. And when I was a child, he came to visit us on the farm, and he would take us for walks. And I was the one who apparently was the sponge, because I even have mental pictures of him telling me things and showing me things. And it was that kind of information from the wild plants that really impressed me and that I've kept till now.
Very cool. What about more recently? Either a book that you've read, something on the internet, a person, anybody in the recent past that's also influenced you that you could tell our group about?
Well, I have started to go visiting other urban foragers in various places. And one of the ones that I had a good time with was Wild Man Steve Brill in New York City. And he leads urban foraging in Central Park. And that was a very funny thing. If I'd known you were going to ask that, I would have included a picture of he and I together. So that was just actually, Wayne, have influenced me greatly. I love what you're doing, and I'm so glad we're back in contact. I do want to come do some more of your events. And my own friends, I would be walking around with various friends, and then I would say, oh, look at this, look at that. And they were the ones who said to me, Kate, you ought to be teaching this stuff. So it's literally the people around me that have put me on this path.
Wow, that's so cool. Is there a book that you've read recently or again, a place on the internet that has influenced you that you could share with our audience? Either, and it doesn't have to be about urban foraging, even if it's just generally about something in your life.
Well, I've got to say, Yes Magazine has a huge influence on me. And Sarah Van Gelder's book, The Revolution Where You Live, is very impressive and talks about the various people across the nation that are actually creating, well, we could call it centers of aliveness. And the other person that I would talk about here would be Michael Brownlee, and all that he has taught me with his most recent class on a local food revolution, where we're trying to get people to eat more things from their backyard, from their neighborhood, from their farmer's market.
By the way, Michael's going to be one of our guests at some point, Kate, and he and I talked about his course right before he started it. And as you know, I'm pretty busy with what I'm doing here, so I didn't get a chance to participate in it. And I knew it was going to be great, so I'm glad that you were able to take that. And Michael will be a great guest for us at some point. So his local food movement is just great. So. Well, that's great. So I've got that, The Revolution Where You Live, Yes Magazine, and Michael Brownlee. And Mark, if you would you put those up on for us? It's hard for me to type while I'm trying to talk and think at the same time. So here's another one. Let's pretend that it was a beautiful Saturday and Sunday when you were 15 years old and you could be doing anything you wanted to be doing. What would we have found Kate doing?
Well, I probably would be out. I know I would be outside, first of all. I'm very much an outdoor person. And 15 years old, that would have meant that, depending on the season, I would be looking for berries or apples or other kinds of fruit. I used to take my cereal bowl out in the morning, just with the cereal in it, and go to the black raspberry bushes and just pick the fruit right onto my cereal bowl and then eat it. So, yeah, that would be what I would be doing. Or I'd be in the garden, my parents' garden. My mother always had chickens and a garden.
And so my next question, usually people give answers that kind of surprise us, but my guess is your answer to this one's not going to, which is, all right, let's fast forward till today. And again, it is a beautiful, just gorgeous afternoon like we can have here in the Colorado area. And you, again, don't have anything else you have to do. What would Kate be doing? And I kind of would guess I know the answer, so you go ahead.
Yes, actually. I, in fact, came in order to do this webinar. I was outside looking at my strawberries and feeding the chickens some bindweed and finding little baby dandelions and things. So I guess it's not a big surprise.
It isn't, yeah, it isn't a real surprise. What about some kind of a tool of any kind that maybe over the last 2 years, 1 year that you've started to use you didn't even know about? And it can be a physical tool, it could be an online tool, anything that you could share with our audience, something that you just found and now you're using it and you think it's great.
Well, there are actually two things. One of them is a phone app that talks about the wild plants and gives good pictures. And again, Steve Brill made this app, and I have found it, even though he's an East Coast person, I found it helpful here. And the second thing is, believe it or not, a good long-bladed set of heavy-duty scissors. I used to use a lot of different things when I went out foraging, and now my main tool is a good heavy pair of scissors because you can dig with them and get roots up. You can cut things off. They're sturdy enough not to break, and it's about all I need other than a gather basket.
That's a great suggestion. And by the way, you probably mean really good scissors, not just some cheap ones that you buy for, very cheap, right? Because I found that nothing more frustrating when you get a pair of scissors that's cheap and they don't cut and they don't do what you want them to do.
That's true, yeah. You got to have good tools. I'm still using tools that I used when I was a kid because they still work and they're still good.
Right. Well, here's the tough question for you, and we'll end on this one, then we'll go into your presentation. Tell us about something that happened in your life, and you could be as specific or as broad as you want, or that at the time it was pretty negative, but now when you look back on it, you see that it really was, it probably has affected you in a very positive way, rather than the real negativity that you felt when it happened.
Actually, I have to go right back to growing up on a farm. It was absolutely no fun at all to be weeding 35-foot rows of beans when I was 7 or 8 years old. It was a lot of hard work. I swore I would leave the farm and never return, and I haven't, but the information I got from that is absolutely unbelievable, and it's now a complete blessing that that is what I had as a childhood because of what I know now.
What a great lead-in to your presentation. Here's our guest, Kate, that just said the negative experience was weeding, and now she's going to tell us about a lot of plants that probably a bunch of you call weeds. So, Kate, why don't you just move right into it? Please, everybody, if you have questions, throw them up in the question as Kate goes along. If it makes sense to ask them while she's in her presentation, we'll do it, and if not, we'll wait till the end, and we'll make sure that we get an answer for you. So go ahead, Kate. You're going to have to bear with me, and you tell me when to move slides, and I will do that. And if you want me to circle something, just tell me something, and I'll do it, because I think that people can see my cursor as I'm doing that. So we'll just go with that.
All right, that sounds perfect to me, Wayne. So let's go ahead and start with slide number 1. Oh, that is it. Slide 2. Now, what we're looking at here is you can see there's still snow on the ground, and yet here are rose hips. And particularly in the spring, if you need a little boost for your immune system, you need a little vitamin C, rose hips are absolutely loaded with them. And these are relatively small ones. In slide number 3, you can see that you can get rose hips if you go to the next slide, Wayne, there you go. These rose hips are almost an inch in diameter. I should have put my hand there by them. They were the most enormous rose hips I ever saw, and how that it made quite a nice vitamin C syrup that my grandkids, my kids, myself, all of us could eat or drink and boost our immune system. They're very high, as I said, in vitamin C. So here are some winter things that winter over very well and that you can pick in the spring. And then in slide number 4, the next slide, can you go to, there we go.
Yeah, it'll be, when you tell me to do a move, there's probably about a 3 or 4 second delay. So
oh, good. Okay.
Be patient with that.
That's good to know. All right, we're working this out. What you see here is the snow has just melted, and underneath that snow, believe it or not, we have wood sorrel, which is also called sour grass, which is in the center of the screen. It has the little folded up leaves. Yes, you're circling it, Wayne, right there. And it is a really nice addition to many different things, salads, soups, and so forth. It has a lemony taste. It is oxalis, actually, and it comes in most plants that you get from the greenhouse. You can find it everywhere, and as kids, we used to nibble on the leaves as we walked along because it created saliva in our mouth and would give us the equivalent of a drink of water and would help with dry mouth. Also, you'll see in the foreground here chives. They also can winter over at times, even in our climate. And then we'll go to the next slide, Wayne.
Okay, I'm moving. It'll take just a bit.
And here you find all kinds of little things that are growing in the early spring. If we start from the bottom of the screen, the first thing you see there is prickly lettuce, grass, and up at the top you will see a dandelion just coming in. And the interesting thing is when the plants are this tiny and you eat them, you're getting the nutrition from the entire plant as if it was big. Because as we know, from a seed, everything from the plant grows out of that little tiny seed. So when you pick the little tiny greens in the spring, which is when you need them, you find that you get all that nutrition in a very tiny mouthful, which is an easy way to start eating plants. And we'll go to the next slide, and it'll show you a close-up of sour. And as I said, this is actually oxalis. The only oxalis is if you tend to have stones, particularly kidney stones or gout or things like that, you don't want to eat many plants with oxalis. You have to cook them first so that the oxalis is no longer an active part of it, because it can combine with uric acid and give you some problems there. So other than that, if you're good to go, it's a great little plant. I put it in fish sauce, I put it in cream soups, and it just gives it a little lemon lift without having a lemon. So it's
like a whole bunch of different ones here.
Oh, yes. This is the one I would have circled, so I'm going to see how we can do that. You're around the right one. That first one that